The Mariners dominated the Rays in 2021. Can they do so again? Plus, is Eugenio Suarez all the way back? Let's talk about it here on today's episode of Locked On Mariners. Colby, hit it.
You are Locked On Mariners, your daily Seattle Mariners podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It is Tuesday, April 26, 2022, and this is the Locked On Mariners podcast. Thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day. We are free and available on all platforms. I am your host, Ty Gonzalez, reporter and editor at allseahawks.com, joined as always by my co-host, Colby Patno. Be sure to follow the show on Twitter at LO_Mariners. You can follow me at Dane Gonzalez, that's DANEGNZLZ, and Colby at CPAT11, that's CPAT11. Be sure to also check out our Patreon, where we talk about the Mariners even more and also get into some non-baseball talk twice a week. Visit patreon.com/control zone for more information on that if you are interested and want more of us. And if this is your first time joining us here on the Locked On Mariners podcast, welcome to the show. If you like what you hear, give us a follow or subscribe wherever you listen to this. And if you're watching us on YouTube, hit the subscribe button, turn on the notification bell, give this video a thumbs up. We greatly appreciate it. The Mariners open up a 3-game set with the Rays later today. We're going to tell you what they need to do to win the series. We're also going to dive into the numbers on Eugenio Suarez, who seems to be having kind of a career resurgence right now. But first, MLB announced today that when rosters go down from 28 players to 26 next week, the 13 pitcher limit will not be implemented until the end of May. How does this impact the Mariners, Colby?
Well, it probably allows Scott Service to carry, probably 14 pitchers, much like he did for most of last year. It'll be interesting to see how they handle that because, they have 3 catchers on the roster right now and carrying 12 3-man bench where 2 of them are catchers. That's not so ideal. So it'll be interesting to see how they decide to handle that. Traditionally, they've wanted to have as many pitchers as they could carry, but it just might not be feasible right now with the current situation. I mean, a bench of Raleigh, Torrens, and Toro is fine. You can make it work, but it's certainly not ideal. So, and also at this stage, do the Mariners have 10 guys or 9 guys worth putting in the bullpen over carrying that extra bat? I don't know. So typically what they've done is they've carried the extra arm. I don't know if it's feasible to ask them to do that again or to expect them to do it again, just based on where the bench currently sits, where it has 2 catchers who really can't play anywhere else but catcher.
Yeah, I think they need to go to at least a 4-man bench at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, I mean, when are they really going to use that 10th reliever, 9th reliever, whatever it is, right? Because Penn Murphy's been in the bullpen for almost a week now, and still haven't seen him. You know, the same thing happened with Wyatt Mills last year, where he was up with the major league club for quite some time, just never really saw him. So, like, I get having that guy for insurance, but if you're never going to use him, even in blowouts or what have you, whether you're winning by a lot or losing by a lot, even if you're not going to use him, and also, why are you using a roster spot for someone that kind of fits that, right? Because you have other guys, you have plenty of arms. You're not going to tire these guys out. I mean, like right now, there's kind of an interesting and a unique predicament that the Mariners find themselves in because, Romo's hurt, Giles is hurt, Sadler is out for the year, Sewald's on the COVID list, but that's probably not going to be the case for the whole year where you're missing 3 or 4 main guys out of your bullpen. So you shouldn't be in a position for the entire season where you're taxing your high leverage guys. And there's also going to, I would assume, come a point where guys like Andres Munoz are going to be allowed to go more than, one day at a time. He might be able to go back-to-back days as the season progresses. Further, he gets, removed from Tommy John and all those things. So I just, ideally, I would just go 8-man bench or 8-man bullpen. because I feel like those two extra guys, and right now, another spot that you're using right now is on Justice Sheffield, who, quite frankly, should probably be getting stretched out in AAA.
Hmm.
I just he's not really pitching a ton right now. We've seen him maybe what 3 or 4 appearances, and we're already at game 17 today. I just is that really worth it? Is that really worth the roster spot? Whereas, you could have someone like Billy Hamilton or hell, even Steven Souza Jr. at that point. Come off the bench, maybe give you some outfield help, whatever you need. Because especially right now, with the with Haniger on the COVID list, Terens was on the COVID list. They didn't even use Donovan Walton or Mike Ford. They had Donovan Walton pinch run at one point, but they didn't even use those guys. So they've been giving a lot of at bats, a lot of playing time to pretty much 10 guys right now. With the catcher, the catcher spot being swapped out between Cal Raleigh and Tom Murphy, and I don't know. I just feel like maybe they're going to end up taxing the hitters more than they are the pitchers at some point if they keep doing this. And I don't know. I just feel like there needs to be a little more fluidity with their position players right now, and we're just not seeing a lot of that. And you're not going to see a lot of that unless they expand to a 4-man bench or beyond. And honestly, I don't think it should be out of the question running a 5-man bench. Quite frankly, I get it. Right now, you want to try to take a lot of pressure off of the arms, but especially after the lockout. But still, I don't know. I just considering how they're using their players right now, it just doesn't make a ton of sense to me.
Yeah, it's being unnecessarily cautious and while understanding that the rotation, those arms need to be protected. They're also, for the most part, they've been pretty efficient in this first month. We've seen Robbie Ray go 7 innings a couple times. Logan Gilbert's gone 6 innings. Chris Flexen's gone 7 innings. Marco's gone 7. So pretty much everybody but Matt Brash has been giving you plenty of innings. So, yeah, you talk about, Penn Murphy sitting out there and Justice Sheffield, I think, has appeared in 3 games this year.
Yeah.
Like, you're not even using everybody in your bullpen. So what good is it to have Penn Murphy up if he's not going to pitch? It's a wasted roster spot. So, and it's also not good for Penn Murphy. So, yeah, it just makes a lot of sense to just, go with the traditional 13 by 13 split. If you don't want to run a 5-man bench because you don't think you have, 5 players that you want on your major league roster, well, that's kind of a problem, but also fine. But you still kind of need that 4th man. I think it should be Billy Hamilton over Dylan Moore, but the Mariners disagree for now, so we'll see. But yeah, I think the 13-13 split is the best way to go. But traditionally the Mariners have gone 14-12.
Yeah. Hopefully that changes, because I really don't think that right now, as things currently stand, this is getting the most out of their roster right now. And I'm talking about the 40-man in general, not just the 26-man. I don't think that they are getting the most that they could out of the guys that they have right now. Just from a construction standpoint, from the geography of the lineup, if you will. Shout out geometry. Did I say geography? Man,
yeah.
It's a day. It's a day. Okay, well, let's move on, because Eugenio Suarez is off to a hot start, and the numbers indicate this turnaround for him might actually be real. We'll tell you what he's done to get back on the right track and if it's sustainable moving forward. But first, let me tell you about the fine folks over at BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your #1 source for all your betting stats and sports info. Find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's basketball playoffs and the start of the Major League Baseball season. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline, where the game starts. You're listening to Locked On Mariners. Thank you again for making us your first listen of the day. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Now podcast. Recaps of MLB games with analysis from our local experts, including myself, taking fans through the season like no other network. It is free and available wherever you get your podcasts, just like us. So, Eugenio Suarez has been off to a pretty nice start for the Mariners here. And this really dates back to the start of last September. It's not really just this year for him. He was one of the worst hitters in all of baseball through the first 5 months of the season last year.
Mm-hmm.
But then September rolled around. And since then, in his last 151 plate appearances, he has slashed 320, 417, 688 with a 198 WRC plus. Striking out just 25.2% of the time, which is lower than he has over the last 3 years. He's walking 13.2% of the time, which, he's walked a fair amount in his career, but that's really good, especially, considering the fact that he might strike out quite a little bit. He's had 11 home runs, 23 RBIs, 14 doubles. And this is kind of the big thing here, right? Is Eugenio Suarez already has 6 doubles this year. His career high, I believe, is 25, if I'm not mistaken. That is kind of a change here. And the bigger change right now, as I look at his plate discipline here on Fangraphs, 23.9% swing rate outside of the zone, on pitches outside of the zone. Colby, looking at his numbers, I think you have them pulled up now from pre-September last year.
Mm-hmm.
The outside zone rates, I mean, they're pretty striking, right? They're a lot higher than they've been over the last 150 plus plate appearances for him, right?
Yeah. From July 24th of 2020, the start of the COVID shortened season, until nope, my bad. Real quick, I got to make this quick change. I accidentally included September in this, and we don't want that. So, what we want is August. So, yeah. So from the start of the COVID season until August 31 of 2021, Suarez was swinging at roughly 28% of pitches he saw outside of the zone, which is obviously significantly higher. His swinging strike percentage was 12.4%. So he was a lot less disciplined. I mean, it's right there for you to see in black and white. And you kind of look at, what does this mean for what he did, statistically in that time period. Led to a 30% K rate, 179, 273, 397 slash line, and a 74 WRC plus. He was still able to get his walks. He was at 10.4% in that 700 plate appearance stretch. But obviously strikeouts were higher than they ever have been, which, is always going to be a part of his game. But it's just to a point where he was getting himself out. He wasn't giving himself a chance. And we're kind of seeing from September of last year until today, he's swinging at fewer pitches outside of the zone. He's being a bit more selective at the plate, and it's leading to better results. And I don't know if that's because his swing is different now than it was in 2020 or the first half of 2021, or if it's just a game plan thing. But either way, the results right now speak for themselves, and there is evidence to suggest that it's maybe not this level is not sustainable, but that Suarez's 2020 and 2020, most of 2021, are more of an outlier than the new norm for Eugenio Suarez.
Yeah, and then you mentioned the whiff rate for him, right? The now over the last 151 plate appearances, it's down below 10%, 9.9%. So basically 10%, but 9.9% whiff rate. And right now, he is, as I pull these numbers up, he is slashing 255, 359, 527 with a 168 WRC plus. He's one of the top F4 getters in the American League right now at 0.6. So let me ask you this. back in 2019, he slashed 271, 358, 572. That was his more or less his career year. The year before that, he hit 283, 366, 526 with a 135 WRC plus, and he only struck out 23.4% of the time that year. I think he's going to strike out a little bit more. I don't have any, delusions of him hitting nearly 50 home runs this year. But he's already got 3. He's hitting for a lot of power, but he's also hitting for doubles power, which again is pretty key here because that's not something that he's done a ton. Most of his power output has been over the wall power. And now it's more he's moving the line, he's getting on base and doing damage that way. And it just seems like he's a bit more, not necessarily a complete hitter, but a more well-rounded hitter. And honestly, that's kind of what the Mariners could really use right now if he can keep this up. So let me ask you this. This is what I was prefacing before. So, obviously he had those career years, the big numbers, the big slugging percentages. Do you think he's going to slug over 500, and how close do you think he can get to that level of production? 2018, 2019.
Right now, I would say I'm cautiously optimistic that he can slug over 500. I would say though that I really doubt we're going to see a year like 2019 again from him. I think he's more of a 235, 240 type of hitter. I think he's going to post about league average on base percentages as a result. And then I think he's going to hit for enough power that with maybe fewer home runs but more doubles. I think that he'll push right around 500 slugging. So and if that's what you get from him, then that's a drastic upgrade over what you got from your third baseman last year. So it's probably a 2.5, 3, maybe even a 4-win player. And that's a borderline all-star. So we'll see if he can continue it. Obviously, we have 700 plate appearance sample size versus 150, but 150 isn't nothing.
Yeah,
It's just not quite enough for us to, or at least for me to feel like I can say, like he's figured it out, or he's done something that is totally sustainable.
well, it's also interesting though, right? Because we've seen guys have hot Septembers. We saw Jarred Kelenic have a really hot September, and he's come back and he's kind of struggled again. Suarez has come back off of the hot September and is just doing the exact same thing he was doing then. So I do think that's noteworthy. I do think that's something that you have to pay attention to here. I think that's something that indicates that, hey, this is probably real. And yeah, there's probably going to be some regression. There's probably going to be a period of time where he slumps. Everyone does. And that's probably going to mess up the numbers a little bit. But I still think he could hit like 230, 240, get on base, 320, 330, and slug over 500. Like, I think that's a legitimate possibility for Eugenio Suarez. And like you said, that's a 3-4 win player. That's someone that's a borderline all-star. And on top of that, he's giving you better defense than at least I personally expected from him so far. And we'll see if that continues. But like, he's been really solid over there at the hot corner, and he's producing offensively. I mean, this is a massive get for the Mariners when you really think about it. If this is actually who he is, right? Because he's only 30 years old. You're only paying him $11 million a year, and you have him under club control for the next 3 years. Like, we looked at this as the Jesse Winker trade, of course. But I think this is legitimately the Jesse Winker and a Eugenio Suarez trade. It's not Suarez is just a throw in just to take some money off of the Reds books and just to lower your cost of acquisition for Winker. I don't think it was that. I think legitimately Jerry Dipoto saw something here. Jerry Dipoto and his team saw something here in what Suarez was able to do in September and the changes that they made, and they felt this guy is more than just a salary dump for us. Like, he can legitimately help us. It kind of reminds me of when the Mariners acquired Gene Segura from the Diamondbacks, and they also got this guy named Mitch Haniger along with him. It's kind of overlooked, it was the Gene Segura trade. But
the Mariners saw it much more as the Segura and Haniger trade. They coveted Haniger, and I had heard way back when that they actually kind of thought Haniger was the prize of that
Mm-hmm.
trade, and that getting Segura was great because it's a guy they wanted, but the Haniger was actually the real prize. It's kind of like when we talk about the Austin Nola trade, and like Trammell was seen as the prize of that trade, but to the Mariners, it was actually more about Ty France than it was
Yeah.
even Taylor Trammell. So, yeah, I mean, the Mariners certainly. I don't think that this was just like, hey, we like Jesse Winker so much and we have to take Suarez. I think this is Mariners front office and their analysts saying, hey, we can get Jesse Winker at a discount and get a Eugenio Suarez, not
Mm-hmm.
have to get him. Not we don't have to take him, but we should, and we could probably get a discount on Winker for doing it.
And by the way,
So
they probably had their choice of Suarez or Mike Moustakas,
yeah,
and
more than likely.
they went Suarez here. And obviously that's not official. We don't know for sure, but presumably, if the Mariners were going to take on money, the Reds likely gave them a choice of Moustakas or Suarez here, and they went Suarez, and there's probably a reason for that. And I think we're seeing that. I think we're seeing that play out. And right now, Eugenio Suarez kind of encapsulates everything that the Mariners' offense has been about through the first 16 games of the year so far. He's taking his walks. Yeah, he's striking out a little bit here and there, but he's taking his walks. He's having good at bats for the most part, and he's doing damage that's not just over the wall power. He's hitting doubles. There was the honestly my favorite game of his that he's had all season was the game that he played on, what was it, Friday night, Saturday night, when he went 3 for 4 with like 3 singles. Like that's
Mm-hmm.
great. Like
Yeah.
that's great. Like it shows you that his value is not just home run or bust. He's not going to hopefully over the course of the season, it's not just he's either going to go 2 for 4 with like a home run and a walk or a single or a double, whatever, and then he's going to, the next night he's going to go 0 for 4 with a golden sombrero. Like I don't like, it doesn't really seem like it's like one end of the spectrum or the other, like in terms of extremes for
No.
him. It seems like there is some middle ground there.
Mhm.
Interestingly, he's had 15 plate appearances against lefties. He only has 1 hit right now against lefties. It's one
Yeah.
for 10 against them.
He's actually if you look at this, he's kind of been a reverse splits guy for the last 2 years and whatever we want to call this year, 2 years and some change.
Yeah.
But traditionally, he doesn't have heavy splits. He's been very good against both. And you mentioned the strikeouts. Yeah, he struck out some, but when you really break those down, he struck out 9 times on the road trip. And he struck out 7 times on the 9-game homestand, and 2 of those strikeouts came against Verlander when he
Yeah.
had his ungodly stuff. So since Houston left town, he struck out 4 times in 5 games with all that power.
Hmm.
So strikeout, I mean, he's had a couple of 3 strikeout games, which obviously hurt. But since he got back home, strikeouts haven't been an issue for Suarez. He's putting the ball in play more than enough.
Hmm.
So even the strikeout numbers are a little bit skewed by an up and down road trip. But yeah, I mean, in the White Sox series, he struck out 5 times combined in the last 2 games. So yeah, I think what you're seeing is Suarez is probably the second best all around hitter on the team right now, behind Ty France, just because he's providing more power than somebody like, say, J.P. Crawford. So
Sure.
he's been huge.
Yeah, it's been massive. And basically what we're trying to say is good vibes only, right? Don't forget it. So the Mariners are going head to head with one of the American League's top teams starting today. Can they grab their 4th series victory in a row? We'll let you know in just a moment. But first, this episode of Locked On Mariners is brought to you by Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, it's now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts you need. Why endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning like is your Odyssey an LX or an EX and wait while the person behind the counter orders the parts on their computer, choosing the only brand their warehouse happens to carry? You have computers with access to rockauto.com at home and in your pocket. So why choose to spend 30%, 50%, 50%, even 100% more for the same parts from a chain store or car dealership. For example, a Honda Odyssey fuel pump is $353 from a chain store, whereas with Rock Auto, it's only $216. Plus, Rock Auto is a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years, and their prices are reliably low for every customer. So go to rockauto.com right after you're done listening to us and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Right, Locked On and their How Did You Hear About Us box, so they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. So the Tampa Bay Rays, who are they're one of your favorite teams outside of the Mariners, of course. I really like how they do business as well. They aside from not spending money, I mean, in
The
terms of
cheapness
the way
part
that
is
they do,
bad. But
yeah, the way that they
their
develop talent is what I
their
mean.
baseball ops is probably the best in the game. I'm
Yes, yes,
fascinated by how they do that. By the way, before we go, we did get a little bit of breaking news
sure.
during the ad read. Mitch Haniger is at Tropicana Field.
Ooh,
He has not officially been activated yet, but obviously the fact that he's down there would seem to indicate that he's getting activated either today or tomorrow. He's not going to be down there if he is still, testing positive or anything like that. So
right.
that comes from Shannon Dreyer. So, pretty reliable source. Haniger is in Tampa Bay, so there's a good shot we see him in this series. Maybe as soon as today, but probably before they head back to Texas at
Well, I
some
would
point
think.
next week.
So, did she say that she saw him on the field? Like, is he on the field?
The official. Also, she just said Paul Sewald is in Tampa.
Okay, there we
But
go.
she said Mitch Haniger is here at Tropicana Field, but no word yet if he's activated. And then she said the exact same thing about Paul Sewald. So they're
It
at the
would.
field,
All right, so it
so
would seem weird if they're at the field if they're still
not to
testing
be activated.
positive.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
they
I would
wouldn't allow them. So I think they're both getting activated today or tomorrow. Like maybe it's, hey, we can't activate you today, but we're so close to let's wait a day and then we'll get you back in tomorrow. You know what I mean? But
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, but typically we have lineups by now and we don't yet. So there's
We'll
some
see.
roster moves that need to happen. Yeah, we'll see. But hey, they're both traveling with the team, or they're at least in the same location as the team. So
Yeah,
that's a pretty good sign.
yeah, that's
And
good stuff.
I don't know if we mentioned this yesterday, but I think we did. Luis Torrens is back as well.
Yeah,
Like he's already
yeah.
been activated. So
So that's huge. The Mariners' offense exploded on this homestand, especially towards the end. And now you add Mitch Haniger and Luis Torrens to that, and you add Paul Sewald to this bullpen, which, it got through it. It got through it for the most part, but did
yeah,
struggle at times. There were some hiccups there for sure without him. So this is a huge, massive boost for the Mariners, and this adds a little bit of context to our discussion now. The Rays entering the series are 9-7. Wander Franco is playing out of his mind right now. He is tied with Ty France for the American League lead in F4 right now at 1.2.
G-Man Troy.
Yeah, G-Man Choi is off to a great start, of course, Mariners legend,
Yep.
G-Man Choi. And, this pitching staff, of course, they're going to use openers. They're going to use an opener tonight. Matt Whistler, also a Mariners legend. A lot of Mariners legends on the Tampa Bay Rays, I think we'll come to find. Because, remember, there's been a lot of trades between Jerry Dipoto and the Rays over the last 6 or so years. So how are you feeling about this matchup in general? Obviously, the Mariners went 6-1 against this team. They got Logan Gilbert going tonight. The Rays are playing fairly well right now, but not probably to the fullest of their potential. Do you think the Mariners are going to be able to keep this thing going, and how do you think they're going to be able to keep this going, if so?
Yeah, what the teams did against each other last year is meaningless.
Right.
It's as meaningless as being mad at a certain somebody for saying Joey Gallo is better than Mitch Haniger, but I digress. So that doesn't really matter. But again, you kind of look at the pitching would tend to favor Seattle, but it's so hard because Tampa is so good with their matchups, and they're so good in their analysts are so good at identifying those matchups. It's really tough to say, and Tampa's kind of been the one team that's been able to consistently repeat this bullpenning strategy, this opener strategy with success. And Whistler's going to throw a ton of sliders. It also kind of messes with how the Mariners do their lineups. If you're not going to see the same guy more than once, you know, how does that impact where you hit guys, where you slot guys in the lineup? So yeah, it's a very interesting matchup. They're coming in. Brandon Lau hasn't really gotten going yet. He's been okay, but he hasn't really started to mash yet. Randy Arozarena, not really producing at the moment. So that's a bit of a break there. Josh Lau or Lowe. One of them's Lowe, one of them's Lau, I believe. I think this is Josh Lowe, but he's been struggling as well. He's the DH today, and then Mike Zunino. We already know who Mike Zunino is. He's either going to strike out or he's going to drop a bomb. And so, the Rays are a good team that has found a way to kind of weather a storm where they are essentially two bats deep in the lineup right now. Yandy Diaz has been okay as well. So, they're 9-8 and they're not playing like all the way up to their potential, which is pretty terrifying for the Mariners who are 10-6 and not necessarily playing up to their potential, but they're maxing out a lot of guys right now. So
sure,
we'll see. It's always a fun matchup with Tampa because they can throw a lot of things at you.
Assuming Dylan Moore doesn't get DFA'd, you might want to throw him in one of these games because Brooks Raley, his favorite pitcher to face, is now a member of the Tampa Bay Rays. For those that don't know, Brooks Raley was the pitcher who threw the grand slam that Dylan Moore hit against the Astros last year before the Kendall Graveman trade.
And then accidentally threw up and in 3 different times on J.P. Crawford until he hit him.
Accidentally.
The next batter. Totally accidental.
Totally accidental. This Rays bullpen is pretty dang good right now. Jalen Beeks is back, and he has been really strong since he came back. 7 1/3 innings pitched, 13.5 strikeouts per 9 for him. Andrew Kittredge, another Mariners legend. He's off to a really strong start. Jeffrey Springs, Brooks Raley, JP Firereisen, Phoenix Saunders. So they got guys. They have quite a few dudes in that bullpen, and it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for the Mariners. Like you said, that creates a lot of interesting pregame decisions. I mean, Christopher Negron, I assume, because I don't think we've heard anything about Scott Service coming back. Christopher Negron and his team, they're going to have to kind of be on their toes during this series. And really, I think the key in this one, pitching's got to step up for the Mariners, because considering how good this Rays bullpen is, might not be a lot of runs out there for the Mariners in this one. So Logan Gilbert, Marco Gonzalez, Chris Flexen, I feel like a lot of this series falls on their shoulders.
Yeah, can they get through the lineup 3 times or 2.5 times? By the way, I know she didn't mention my boy Jason Adam.
He's on the Rays now. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, 46% whiff percentage. So yeah, he's off to a nice start. By the way, this is a fun little note here. Luis Torrens is better than Mike Zunino at throwing the ball. Yep. Mike Zunino.
Is that like a stat you saw, or are you just making that statement?
No.
Oh, okay.
Mike Zunino, arm, it's on catcher pop times. Arm 81.2. I assume that's miles per hour. Exchange 0.72 seconds. Average pop time 2:02. Luis Torrens, arm 81.3. Exchange the exact same. Overall pop time 1.98. Luis Torrens better than Mike Zunino, confirmed. Also, Tom Murphy has the exact same pop time as Mike Zunino and a stronger arm, believe it or not. Murphy at 85.4, which feels incorrect.
I would venture to say, though, that the arm is less accurate than Mike Zunino.
Hey, Mike Zunino is very accurate. So, and obviously, that's a joke.
Yeah.
Clearly, Mike Zunino is a better defensive catcher than Luis Torrens. And a guy that we have speculated, I believe, on the show, maybe it was on CTZ, could be a Mariner again as soon as July. I would not be shocked if the Rays, even if they were in it, maybe thought they could trade Zunino for help elsewhere. So yeah, I'm not giving up on the dream of Mike Z coming back to Seattle. But yeah, by the way, I'm just saying Luis Torrens is better. That's all I'm saying.
I'm glad that Pop Time is back though, because I don't think they were recording it the last couple of years, right? On Statcast or on Savant. I don't think they
Yeah, it's
were.
not on the it's not on the front. It's not on the players page. You have to go to the game
Oh, okay.
previews and scroll to the bottom.
I see.
Yeah, so but still, I was scrolling down and I thought I saw it. By the way, Mike Zeno's framing 42nd percentile. So maybe Luis Torrens
Clearly,
is better.
clearly he has regressed significantly, guys. You heard it here first. We are joking. We are joking. I know
Are we? Are we though?
someone is going to be down in the comments and being like, "You idiots! Mike Zunino is the best catcher of all time," etc., etc., etc.
By the way, I totally expect Zeno to hit at least 2 home runs in this
Oh yeah,
series.
absolutely. Because Colby, as we all know, Mike Zunino is fill in the blank. Good.
Yeah,
Very, very
he
good.
is indeed.
He is good. And he's an all-star. He's an all-star now.
Yeah.
All-star Mike Zunino.
Yeah,
That's nice to see.
technically
By the way,
true.
the Mariners are going to see this Rays team again in like a week and a half when they get back to T-Mobile Park. So they're going to wrap up this season series with them pretty quick here. So a lot of games against the Rays. You better get used to them because we're going to be seeing a whole lot of them. So that's going to do it for our show. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. For Colby Patnode, I'm Ty Dane Gonzalez. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at LO_Mariners. You can follow me at Dane Gonzalez, that's DaneGnzlz, and Colby at CPAT11, that's CPAT11. You can also find all that stuff in the description of this episode. And thank you again for making us your first listen of the day, just like you do here every day. We greatly appreciate your support. Now make your second listen of the day Locked On MLB. That's where Paul Francis Sullivan, and please call him Sully, brings you his unique perspective on the Major League's present and past. It's free wherever you get your podcasts, just like us. So have yourself a beautiful baseball day, and we will see you tomorrow. Go M's. Peace.